what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, how dare you, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to join the community debate, then go to nathanoakley.com and check out the Flat Earth Debate forum, which you should definitely all join. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Sleeping Warrior, 10th Man, Righteous Force and Flatzoid in the Google Plus Hangouts on air. How you doing?
Doing well.
Oh.
Good afternoon, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and we've also got a few people in Discord as well, so hello to all of you in Discord.
Morning. Well, good afternoon to you.
We're good.
Right, who's gonna kick off housekeeping?
Hello.
Any signs of Earth curvature?
No.
No, there's no evidence whatsoever that we live on a bendy Earth. A little bit of optical effects that can be described in about 70 different ways. If you want to check out those effects, check out Tim Osmond's channel. There's a running total. None of them involve Earth curve.
It'll all be called Earth curve though, right? What's that, cloudy day? Earth curve? What's that you say? Too small to see? Earth curve?
I think the list is up to 80 now.
Things they call Earth curve as fundies. Awesome. I love that list.
Oranti had a good video yesterday concerning Earth curve. I think it was quite good.
Wasn't it about Red Rhetoric's video?
Yes, the same one I get flack on.
Those 13 frames, right?
What's
Yeah.
what's the said distance or supposed distance of where the camera was and the splashdown was? Anybody know the distance?
No one, that's the problem.
Well, the reason I ask is QE shows that the Sea Sparrow missile has 34-mile range, and if there's Earth curve, it's got to go through 26 miles of water, curve water, which means the 2-degree pencil beam would never lock on target because it's line of sight. And we're talking about the ship mounted system 50 feet above the water, shooting down a boat on the water 34 miles away. So whatever the distance that splash is for that Orion capsule, if you use the actual numbers of the Sea Sparrow, it's impossible for them to say what they're saying.
Exactly. And if you check now, Rough Moose just put another video out with multiple locations on that capsule. It's actually quite interesting.
And if they want to argue that point, they've got to go back to the Navy and say, why have you been using this missile system for 15 years when it doesn't work? And the Navy's going to say it does work.
Yeah.
No, that whole thing is a joke. All you got to do is compare it to something else that we know, the Sea Sparrow missile.
Any evidence of
Yeah, all I was
axial-
trying to prove is that...
It's all right, go on.
As I say, all I was trying to prove is that the capsule just vanishes into the mirage. And that's all.
Hey, Chocolate. I'm sure Chocolate had a question about axial rotation.
Axial rotation of what? Earth? What's that? Where's that?
That's
Where's
good
that
enough
at?
for me. Good enough, Chocolate. That's good enough. Anybody? Axial rotation of Earth? What's that? Good enough.
Not here in South Africa.
Oh yeah, shout
Any
out to Agent Dubsky, by the way, who smashed the super chat before the show even started. He says, thanking you in advance for a great week. No worries.
Any scientific evidence for gravity?
Scientific evidence of what? Shout out to flatearthchannel.com.
Funny you should say that.
Nothing.
Funny you should say that because about 5-6 o'clock British summertime on Jose's channel, I'm going to be debating what's his face, George Netanyahu, who's going to be presenting this scientific evidence for gravity. So at the moment there is no evidence for gravity, but we're expecting an incoming flood of scientific evidence from George Netanyahu on gravity, because obviously there's an atmospheric pressure that we're all breathing, apparently at 14.7 psi. Spurs questions that 14.7 psi apparently, but that aside, tangent aside, George will be demonstrating gravity as the explanation, I believe, for why the atmosphere does not immediately evacuate into the vacuum of space. And I can't wait. So if you want to check that out, it'll be about 5 or 6 o'clock tonight, or in a few hours, on Jose's channel, and it'll be a one-on-one, and it'll be a back and forth. And I've given him pre-disclosure of my arguments. Out on my latest upload on my channel, it's good.
Wait, you said he'll be
I wonder if it's gonna be
demonstrating
for
or
4D
telling you a story?
Just wanted
I'm
to
not quite sure.
Demonstrating, you
just
said?
before you answer, so down doesn't change direction on a flat earth is flatearthchannel.com's comment in this regard. He's just said it in the super chat. I just knew you were trying to get something out, Anthony, hence me pausing.
Good Times for All also did a video this morning on like gravity, I guess.
Describing the effect of electricity.
Yeah.
P-Brain
Direction. And of course,
put up a video too.
Of course, Zach's quite right. There are things that do influence what we, may well be the explanation. But on their model, that isn't their explanation, which is our point. They don't have any evidence for gravity.
True, but I was just shouting out Good Times for All.
Yeah. Shout out to Zach.
Yeah, well, they can't decide between 3D world and 4D world.
Yeah.
Any evidence of the
Anyway.
distance to the sun?
No
No,
current
no.
distance.
There's more evidence for Bill Miller. Do you remember that one? Shout outs to Bill Miller.
About the R value? Any evidence of the R value?
No evidence whatsoever of R.
Presupposed.
There are be none here.
Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the center of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Come on, Discord. This is where you can shine.
Do ballers even talk about this one anymore? Or ever did?
They don't talk about any of the housekeeping points.
They do after the show.
When no one's listening. Oh, that's how. So handy. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's it then. Have we covered them? Is that all of them?
No, gas pressure. We need gas pressure.
Any evidence that you can have gas pressure without a container?
The antecedent, nope.
Yeah, it's an antecedent. That's correct. The necessary antecedent for gas pressure. Well, that concludes housekeeping. Thank you very much. Please share the show.
Are there any bowlers that can actually have a discussion with gravity?
Well, no. Gravity is a concept. You can't have a conversation with it.
I just want to say shout out to. I was going to say shout out to Anthony for being back. We missed you, guy.
Yeah, it's been busy, man. I've been busy sweating my knickers off because it's Hot at the minute.
Yeah, Riley.
Other than the UK.
Welcome back, brother.
Hey, Anthony, the only way you could get a baller to discuss gravity is to actually force them.
But that would require an interaction, wouldn't it? A push or a pull, and we can demonstrate that.
I love it.
Hello, all. Hello, hello.
Hey, Paul. Have you got any evidence for gravity, Paul?
Well, it would have to change a lot of definitions, and I can have evidence for it, but it's going to depend on the definition. Been thinking about it a lot over the weekend. I think most everything we see, there's an article I found that said all molecules attract to one another. So, and it's usually a chemical process. So density, relative density, chemical bonds, I think that could account for what we observe as gravity. It just depends.
Paul, define definition, please.
Yeah.
What's the definition of is? What do you mean by is? Come on, let's get specific here.
What's the definition of definition? It's the meaning of a word.
No, the definition of is.
You know,
The nature
when
of
it
the
comes
thing.
down to when it comes down to ballers claiming that it's just become a semantic argument, that's basically when they've lost, because the meanings of words is important. It's not a dirty word. If it says blue, it means blue, right? It don't mean red. The minute they accuse you of having a semantic argument, they've lost.
I'm colorblind. This is just semantics.
Well, they observe relative density and things within that medium. Anthony proved it with the egg and the salt and the water, and you got that jar with all the different objects and the cherry in the middle. And they say, oh, well, let's just call that gravity instead of what it is.
Yeah. And then what they also do is they not only do they invoke gravity to be the reason, they also dismiss the thing that I did manipulate. And I even had somebody arguing with me yesterday that just by adding salt doesn't mean you've changed the density. Now, none of the ballers have actually argued that. They all accept that if you do add salt, you do change the density, you add in mass to the solution. Little tiny bit of volume, but you are also adding mass. But this guy was trying to argue that you didn't change the density. And I'm like, so what do you think putting the salt did to the solution if that wasn't changing the density? Just deny. It's nonsense.
Well, it's total nonsense because we've already discussed what do you call it? In Israel, the lowest point below sea level, come on, we've talked about it. I've been there twice. Where you float on the water because it's so salty.
Salt flats.
Yeah, the Red Sea or the Dead Sea.
The Dead Sea, thank you, the Dead Sea. So it's the highest concentration of salt in the Dead Sea. The Israeli government is actually making products out of it. I mean, stuff that you couldn't make unless you had that kind of density. And, you actually float on that thing without even trying. And so for them to say salt doesn't do that, it's just a stupid argument. I mean, your egg and salt prove it right there with a little bit of salt. Just imagine if you're in the Dead Sea and you see all these people floating.
You can't get past that the salt changes the density. You can't get past that density, that change in density was the reason why the egg moved. That did alter the pressure that was within the fluids, or the fluid in that instance, tap water. It increased the pressure. The egg reacted to that increase in pressure and moved. The force was pressure. The independent variable was changing the density with the salt. There was no gravity in that. But you morons think that gravity adds some kind of effect with buoyancy, and that means that you've got to dismiss the thing that I actually did and then substitute it with something I didn't do and go batshit crazy with scientific method and go into the world of pseudoscience. And we all know pseudoscience is not real world.
Anthony, you actually...
Riley, you forgot ballers can't causation, remember?
Horrendous.
Forgot about that.
Anthony, you actually showed the actual experiment and you documented every step. And if that's not enough, then you know that they are blind to it on purpose.
Yeah, they ignore it.
See, but 10th man, this is how crazy it is. Me and Riley had a debate on, I think it was Saturday, with some guy who literally said, you flicking on a light switch and that light turning on is not the cause of the light turning on. I mean, this is the type of level of crap that we're getting right now. You understand?
To be fair, let me just add a little bit of a disclaimer. What he said was like, yeah, if you turn the light switch on and the light goes on, you didn't cause the light to go on because it's the flow of electrons and all that. And obviously, he's going into the very, very subjective Kant interpretation that Brenda supports. But Kant's been heavily criticised by other protagonists for being overly subjective. And indeed, that's the reason why it's become deductive rather than inductive scientific method, because of Kant. Now, Brenda argues that Kant is credible, even though nobody else does. But Kant's interpretation of the light switch switching on would, of course, be the flow of electrons that was the cause of the filament burning. But the reality was, if you didn't switch the light switch, no filament's going to light. So you did cause it. Now, yeah, it depends on how much you want to interpret what's going on. But you can't deny that you flicking the light switch did cause the light to go on. That would be a
Wait a minute.
moron.
Exactly.
This is moronic, because all you got when you buy a house and you expect the lights and the gas and everything to work, that doesn't excuse the fact that somebody had to put wires. Somebody had to create a substation where the electricity was being transferred. There was involvement every step of the way before you bought your house, so that you could conveniently push down a switch, or push up a switch. I mean, there's involvement by so many people just for you to have this nice convenience.
Look, you're just wrong. The cause of pork chops is Walmart.
I don't know if you guys
They
can
might
see
as
what
well
I'm.
be.
Oh, you got my bacon on that one.
Well, these puns are going to kill us. Actually, I've shared something on screen. This is something I found doing a little bit of digging myself. Do you guys see what I think Nathan's sharing it on the live stream? You see what it says? If you can see it. It says all atoms and molecules have a weak attraction for each other. This is called the Van der Waals attraction. And there's ultimately different types of bonds that go on in chemical, which we could spend all day on this. But I think everything we're describing has this property to it, where it's the bonds that are causing most everything we're seeing. And if you when you reduce the chemical or the kinetic energy in a substance, the bonds start to take hold. That's why water droplets form. I think it's the hydrogen bonds that begin to form to create the water droplets on the outside of my window I see right now, or the same thing when it becomes to gas. Everything you describe, everything from density to gas pressure, everything is related to this right here that I see. So if you want to say, if you define gravity as, this kind of thing going on, then yeah, it's everywhere, because I think that even density, that means that the things become more compact, more drawn together, where things can't go through it. So that's still, I don't know if you understand what I'm driving at. I'm still kind of touching the scale of it, but I think these are the factors we can't, they don't address. And all this can account for everything we see in the terrestrial world, but they have to change the definition when it gets to the heavenly world, to the things we see in the sky. But everything we see on Earth can be accounted for through these processes through chemical interactions with one another, everything we see. Disagree? Comments, queries?
No, it's all good.
What's that? Say that again. I didn't hear you.
I said that's all good. Yeah, great. Wonderful. Can't disagree with any of it. What's nothing wrong with anything you've said.
Simple concept silences the panel. That's pretty sad.
Well, I mean, the only thing I could add is that sometimes people get a bit confused between the breaking of weak and strong bonds, right? So, having something turn from a liquid into a gas isn't I can't remember who it was. Someone came on and sort of made it sound like you're breaking apart the H2O bond, which you're not. So if I go back on your screen, it's showing
Go ahead.
it's showing a water molecule. Well, you're not breaking the strong bonds when it breaks apart from being water to being gas. It's still
Right.
It's still bonded as H2O. It's still water. You're not fundamentally changing it at that level. You're just breaking the weak bonds by changing the phase. Anyway, it's a moot point.
Right.
Most people understand that. Some people equivocate with it. That's all.
Well, and also when it comes to gas pressure, the thing they don't see, which I was watching a video on yesterday, is the further these molecules get apart, that attraction lessens. So, I think Anthony was on the Discord the other day when we were all in there, I think on Friday, and I was trying to ask about this one molecule of what would draw it back down, and nobody would really address it. But the further you get away, further the molecules get away from each other, they won't attract to each other. It's like a magnet, If you get a magnet closer together, it'll get stronger and stronger, suddenly, and then snap,
I know what brings it back down, Paul.
What does?
I know what brings it back down, that one molecule.
What's that?
A force.
Oh, really?
Well, yeah.
They describe all.
Yeah. Well, hold on. Yes, you could bring it down with the force. You could hit it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But the problem is, they don't have a force.
No.
Oh, I know.
Of course they don't. But what I'm saying is that's not an unreasonable assertion. In other words, if you've got a great big piece of cardboard, right? You could walk along and waft molecules, and you're going to be hitting them and moving them, and you are applying a force to them. That's perfectly reasonable to assert. But to assert that a magical force is holding them here as a gas that's not bonded to anything is absolutely absurd.
Well, and see, they describe these connections as forces in chemistry, but it's the charge of the molecule that's the force. They know what it is. It's not, in like a magnet, the force that's drawing the two magnets together is the magnetic field. So there's something interacting, either the charge of the molecule or the magnetic field of the magnet. But if you say there's nothing doing that, then nothing can do that. So nothing can do nothing.
Well, Paul, you and Sleeping Warrior are absolutely wrong because it's the curve. It's the curve that causes it.
No, they don't. I don't think they blame curve on this, do they? It's a byproduct as opposed to a cause in this regard. I mean, I know where you're going. They've got a lot of things they call Earth curve, 10th man. I'm not going to disagree with you on that. But in this instance, I don't think they assert curve, right, as a cause.
Well, in the
belief.
4D world, it's curve on everything.
Yeah, they do typically. I mean, I have pretty much said those words on this show. So, yeah, you could hold me to task on that. In this instance, though, they've just got a fundamentalist religious belief about a vacuum in the sky and a fundy belief in a force that's not a force, but you can think of it as a force holding it all here rather than having it explode into the vacuum of the sky that they believe in. It's all
don't miss my exercise in futility here. What I was doing was I was demonstrating that when I don't have an answer acting as a baller to what you guys just said, I'm just going to throw out Earth curve.
That is a good position to take if you're a baller. What's the cause of this? Well, Earth curve. But in this instance, it's a byproduct rather than a cause. But I understand the absurdity of your statement now. Very humorous.
Curvature. I put that shit on everything.
Like steak sauce.
How does an
There you go.
how does an abstract or concept have any causal effect?
It doesn't. It doesn't. So yeah, when they say bending of space-time gives rise to... Right, so your concept and how you mathematically bend that concept, do you think gives rise to a non-force that we could consider a force? What a load of old nonsense. Space-time's just a concept. Bending it means nothing. Literally nothing.
But according to Rumpus on Ballbusters, you just don't understand. You're stupid. You're a moron. You just don't understand.
That's their only attack. If they're in the losing position, ridicule the opponent. It's a very cheap tactic. It's not necessary on our side because we're winning.
I hate it when they do that because what that then bonding.
Then you gain up a little bit, Anthony, clipping, or your gate is too high.
Just saying that I hate I hate it when they do that, because what it does is it turns the focus away from the point that's being made, and the reaction is that the audience remembers the ridicule rather than the point or the counterpoint. And it's a tactic that they use called obfuscation, and that's why they don't come on the show anymore, because we know, and everybody knows, that they can't do stuff, they can't explain stuff without personal attack, incredulity, and ridicule, and that's their only tactic at the moment.
As I say, if they were on the winning side of the argument, they could just state their case and smash us. But they can't, so they have to apply ridicule and obfuscation.
Yep.
Get yourselves a winning argument, Globers. Come on.
And another thing that makes me think of that they do, and Rumpus is very well known for this, is there's a tactic in law, like if you're supposed to give over evidence for, in a trial, especially I think here in the U.S., you can turn over the evidence, but you can turn over so much of non-relevant stuff that the evidence gets lost. I forget what the term is. Anthony, you might know what that is better than I do, but I forget what they call it. But that's, you see that happening sometimes. If you want to get something lost, you just throw out all this other information, and whatever you're even saying gets lost in the shuffle.
Scattergunning.
Yeah. Doesn't really work in a courtroom. From personal experience, I've had an opponent do that to me, where they just flood you with documentation, but the judge will mark off what's been gone to and its relevance. In the tribunal I went through, the guy had a whole load of highlighters, and he's just marking off page by page and paragraph by paragraph what's actually been referenced. And if there's a page been disclosed that's of no significance or reference and nobody's gone to it, then he gets stroppy. The judge, that is.
Well, there's different ways of arguing a point. For example, Anthony adds salt to the water and the egg floats. It's obvious what he did. They'll come up and say it's something else. Anthony says, okay, I flip a switch and the light goes on. I cause the light to go on. They come up and say, well, how about the light itself, or the elements, or the electrons, or whatever he was saying, the filament. Wait a minute, I'm just talking about how this light went on. I flipped the switch. They won't stay on what you're saying. They take it to a whole different way of looking at it, which is a whole different argument, because then you have to go there and say, okay, well, who made the light bulb then? I mean, they're just so dishonest.
I feel like it's because they have no actual scientific proof for their ball. So they have to assert that science doesn't prove anything, because that's their biggest nonsensical argument right now. Science doesn't prove things. Science doesn't prove things.
Yeah, they ignore that it does prove the cause and the effect relationship, and they ignore that it proves either the hypothesis or the null hypothesis. They don't count.
If science didn't prove anything,
the most they'll give it is a correlation.
If science didn't prove things, nobody would ever do it. And it amazes me that they will declare this only in the face of a losing argument with us, but they'll declare it because, well, there's two reasons. One is because they're just so stories claimed to be science, which is the second point. They're just so stories may need changing later down the line. So if you say, well, science doesn't prove anything, it just assists a just so story we're making up while we call ourselves scientists. That's the reality. Pseudo-scientists claim science doesn't prove anything because often they'll need to change their story when their original correlation-based deduction doesn't actually pan out and it needs to be altered. So that's why pseudo-scientists will say it doesn't. Well, Anthony summed it up beautifully. Science proves or disproves your hypothesis. And what's a hypothesis? Well, it's a scientific prediction. And what's its prediction going to be? Well, it's going to be predicting the cause of an effect you've observed in the natural world. So step 1, observe a phenomena. Step 2, formulate a prediction, otherwise known as a hypothesis, a scientific prediction. Step 3, systematically experiment. Simple. Once you have validated your alternative hypothesis, that is to say that you have assumed correctly what the cause of the effect is, varied it, and it's caused it, well then you validated your hypothesis. You've proven the cause of the effect. Validated, proven your hypothesis. Or if you get it wrong, you pick the wrong thing, you vary and manipulate it, it causes nothing, zero difference, otherwise known as a null, well then you validate your null hypothesis. Just as a side note, you don't directly test the null. You're never directly testing for something to not happen. You're testing the alternative, i.e. you're trying to cause the effect. And if you don't, you validate the null. But there's absolutely validity and empiricism for science. And what is science? Well, it's the scientific method.
Nathan, can I give an example?
Go
ahead. Coriolis. Okay, I'm a flat earther. So if you prove Earth-based Coriolis, then I will take the position that the Earth is spinning. I will believe that, if you can prove Earth-based Coriolis. So we know that on the roundabout, something that's on the Earth, actually there is a Coriolis effect on the roundabout. And we've seen this demonstration many times. Now, these globers want to say there's Earth-based Coriolis. And they say it works with a football being kicked for a field goal, and it works with a bullet. But it doesn't work with a helicopter, airplane, or balloon, or anything else. Now, this is so absurd because all you got to do is prove Earth-based Coriolis, and I believe the Earth is spinning. But you can't prove it, so I don't believe the Earth is spinning. That's how simple it is. They're so dishonest.
Guys, I got to drop. I just wanted to let you guys know before I just disappeared, so I'll catch you guys later.
See you later, Anthony. Good to
Later.
see you.
All right, brother.
They will never admit that they can't prove Earth-based Coriolis.
Problem is, even if they conduct an experiment and actually are able to actually cause an effect, what they'll say is, oh, you haven't accounted for every variable. Even though you were able to cause an effect.
Yeah, but if the Earth turns under the bullet and the football, it must turn under an airplane.
Oh yeah, that I agree. I'm just saying, as far as the, an experiment and they're arguing of finding causation. That's why.
I was talking to someone over the weekend, and I said, look, the Coriolis is their death. If the Earth is not spinning, it's not a globe. If the Earth is not spinning, there is no gravity. If the Earth is not spinning, they don't have a reason for the water sticking on. The Earth is not spinning because there is no Earth-based Coriolis. Let me demonstrate. And you just go through the things I just talked about, and they're like, what? They're like dumbfounded.
Don't they in school textbooks use airplanes for Coriolis example?
Yes, they do. They also do it on YouTube when they give you an example for children where they'll show a plane having the Earth turn underneath it. Absolutely correct. They tell you it's children because people would spot the doublespeak if they were a bit older than 5. Or recognise that simply doesn't happen.
Like last week with Rumpus. Rumpus, how many reference frames must you have for Coriolis of any type to take effect? What is the cause of Coriolis? 1 reference frame or at minimum 2? He avoided that one.
Bill Miller in the chat. Shout out to Bill Miller. Yeah, it's one of those subjects that's going to get the most ridicule because it's one of their weakest arguments. It's got the most layers of bullshit on it because it's their weakest argument.
But they got to have it for the globe.
Not sure why they don't just drop it, to be honest. It's ridiculous.
Because if they drop it, they're essentially dropping the spinning ball Earth. They're conceding to geocentrism if they drop that idea of Earth-based Coriolis effect. Having 2 reference
but
frames
continuing to argue it makes them just look even sillier.
Well, they've got to leave it left in confusion. The argument is going to take place, and if there's no one there to defend it on the globe side, then obviously that's just a straight-out victory. Well, it's got to be argued. Well, they can't win the argument, but they can obfuscate it. So that's what they'll do. Ridicule and obfuscate. It's another losing position globe argument, tied up in doublespeak that doesn't make any sense, and ridicule and obfuscation, and attack your career, and attack you in any way, shape or form to not let you point out that Coriolis effect is a very, very bad argument for them. Because they don't have a Coriolis effect. They don't have Earth turning underneath aeroplanes. They don't have that. Even though they tell children they do. Guest in Discord. Dude with lots of question marks. Nice to have you, question mark dude.
It's 777, dude.
It's my distance to the screen. Talking of screens,
Yeah.
I'm going to get a screen upgrade, so I'm going to order a new projector on Wednesday. I shouted out the Patreons in the pre-show, but I'm going to shout them out again, but for the fact that I've got Patreon support, I would not be buying a new projector, I assure you. So, yeah, big shout out to all the people who support me on Patreon. Thank you very much. My rattling, annoying, old projector will be replaced, and it'll mean I get more pixels, so I can do more stuff. I can have more stuff on the screen, which is very, very important. And I might actually be able to read people's names. Although it'll actually get smaller, so it might get worse in that regard if I'm struggling to read everybody's stuff. Let's read out flatearthchannel.com. Can you explain how seasons work to the viewers? What do you mean how seasons work? I cannot explain how seasons work. Do you know what part of seasons? If you're going to ask me how to qualify them moving around an azimuth equidistant projection, then no, I'm not going to do that. Beyond what we observe, I'm not going to detail how it works on a reification. Sorry. Thank you for the super chat, though. Really appreciate your support, flatearthchannel.com. Maybe there's something more specific that you want to make a note of. I'll watch if you just want to. You'd have to super chat it, but yeah, if you put it in the chat, I'll see if there's something more specific that you wanted us to address. Yeah, a decent explanation would require one of the housekeeping questions addressed. The distance to the sun, right? So if I'm going to say, well, the sun's close in this particular... Well, there's straight away a problem, right?
Exactly.
I can describe how it appears to me. The sun appears to be closer in summer. Appears. The apparent position of the sun. Meaningless, not actual. Well, so what? That doesn't describe what's actually occurring. And that's what you want to know, right? What's actually causing the seasons to change? Now, my detail of where the sun moves through the sky and the fact that it stays in the sky longer and higher is self-apparent. You can just have a look at the sun during summer and see that it's higher and see that it's in the sky longer. And from Britain, it seems to move around me in a kind of vector shape. And because it's higher, it stays in the sky longer. Winter, I can see it out of one window rather than 3 or 4 windows, like around the whole house. It just goes up and down in the kitchen window. So it just stays low to the horizon during winter. You don't get very much of it. So it seems like you get more sun. That's my best explanation, and that's all I can explain. Why is the sun doing that? God only knows. I have no idea. I don't know how far it is. I don't know very much about the sun. None of us do, if we're really honest. Some people will disclaim that they know, especially sphere-believing zealots. They'll tell you exactly how far it is, based on an assumption of Earth's radius, and then that assumption being transposed onto a light in the sky called Venus. Then an application of, Kepler's third law? So yeah, you can make loads of assumptions about it. I'm not prepared to do that, but good super chat nonetheless, because it's a very, very interesting subject, not addressed, asked daily. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Nathan, it's obvious that through the history of mankind, there's winter, spring, summer, and fall, 4 seasons. It's obvious that the luminaries are moving in a circuit of some kind that repeats itself each year, identical. And we have these effects. And so back onto the lack of Earth spin, no Coriolis, it's the luminaries that spin, and you could see this through the time-lapse photography. Something is moving, and since we know it's not the Earth, it's got to be the luminaries. And it's there for the 4 seasons. It causes it. That's it. I mean, you don't need to know any more than that. I mean, who cares? It just repeats itself each year.
It causes it. That's the effect we observe. I wouldn't say that's causing anything. That's just the effect we observe. It could be something totally outside of the manifestation of those lights, and whatever is actually causing it, again, a net result of that is the lights themselves. Whereas in reality, it's a completely different mechanism. We don't know. I don't know. The cause.
Well, there's order.
Go
It
on, sorry.
repeats itself. It's a design of some type.
Yeah, it's self-evident, though, isn't it?
That's what I'm saying. I mean, the greater argument is not what causes temperature change. The greater argument is the Earth a ball and is it spinning?
I
No.
see where you're going. Right, so to assert that us turning on an axis and moving around the sun, as per the name, heliocentric, sun at centre, well, that is their description, and the mechanism thereafter is described by that model. Well, we don't live on a model. We don't live in a heliocentric world. We're not moving our physical position and location at all. But to assert that we're moving around the light in the sky is absolutely absurd. That's what that model is. It's just a model. To reify it into reality and say that we're actually traversing the sun at horrendous speeds, it's ludicrous. But Coriolis is partially at the core of that, right? You'd need Coriolis if you've got a spinning, rotating, axial, spin of a sphere Earth. You've got to have your Coriolis effect. Your two separate reference frames causing that deviation taught to children of a plane with the Earth rotating underneath. The fact that that doesn't ever happen ever, when we don't have anything other than complete stillness and a bit of wind, there's no rotating non-inertial reference frame that you leave when you jump in the air or take off in a helicopter or a plane or send a drone up or anything. We don't observe any Coriolis effect. Earth isn't spinning. Now, to us, that's patently obvious. When it's asserted, it seems completely absurd. But many people will believe it simply because they're told we are spinning and we are traversing the sun. Well, that's ludicrous. Lights in the sky appear to move above our heads. That's self-evident. Us turning and rotating and moving at exponentially ludicrous speeds as you get bigger and bigger in scale? No. That's absolutely absurd. We're not moving.
What I noticed was kind of funny that Bob the Fallacy guy did his little presentation and didn't bring up Coriolis at all.
Amazing.
And refused to answer questions about it. So that was very telling to me, like, wow, so your entire presentation is called the rotation of does the Earth rotate, and you're not going to bring this point up? Okay. Thought that was funny.
Yeah, that should say it all, because if it was a true effect, that if Coriolis effect was actually happening on Earth, then first and foremost you'd have 1.5 hour flights from Charlotte, North Carolina to LA. But that would be obvious and observable and demonstratable anytime anybody wanted to demonstrate it ever. It would be something that we'd have to deal with in our day-to-day surroundings. We'd have to cope with it at varying degrees depending on where we were on a spinning ball fantasy reification model. Well, that idea never has to be factored in. Nobody's accounting for it. It's just necessitated by the model of a sphere Earth being reified into existence by fundamentalist religious zealots. That's the only reason why we have this description. It's necessitated by a spinning ball, but we just don't have it.
That's why the whole thing, like dominoes hitting each other, falls apart when you take any one of their lies apart and break it down the way you just did.
Yeah, but yeah, that would be their course of the seasons, us spinning and traversing the sun and our elliptical orbits and our axial tilt and how close the Earth is in relation to the sun based on its orbit, based on where you're tilted at that particular part of the orbit around the sun. That's their explanation for the seasons. It's horseshit. It requires you to reify a model and say that we're moving around a light in the sky. Now, I phrase it that way intentionally because it's so absurd. Have you seen the Dearth Flat Earth map? It explains seasons pretty good and accurate on the Apple App Store. I have seen Dearth's rather nice Flat Earth reification. However, as much as I don't want to disrespect Earth, I've got a lot of respect for him, and I wish him every success with his app. We don't live on a model. The azimuthal equidistant projection is a sphere Earth projection. That's what it is. And we don't live on it. So to reify that into the world that we live in, It's unfortunate, especially as its origins are from a sphere. It's a spherical projection. And people say, oh, well, it's pretty accurate, it's close, it's only wrong in this. Well, if it's wrong, it's wrong.
Well, to entertain reifying, I guess I can show something that I've seen that's interesting. Like the analemma at the equator seems to be like. Am I screen sharing?
You can be. I'll stick you on. Yes, you are now.
Okay. Well, the analemma on the northern hemisphere looks something like this, and the southern is kind of like upside down. And at the equator, it's supposed to look something like this, I guess. So that kind of reifies the pizza model in a sense.
I'm not saying that
Right.
eventually we won't have a presentation and it might look something not too dissimilar from the azimuthal equidistant projection and be a useful layout or a map, to put it bluntly. But will that ever give you a perfect symmetry with the celestial bodies and the ground beneath? Until we've actually got it, we won't know, and we don't have that. That's the bottom line. And it's intentional. All of the maps are controlled by the people who tell us we're on a sphere. So therefore, even the flat ones are spherical projections. That's very much intentional. So all you're going to do is end up going back to its origins, which is a sphere. Well, why not just start by smashing the sphere? You know, yes, we will need to have a better representation. People will want a more accurate world map, what we know of as the world currently. But I would say there's deeper questions that will come before that. But the problem is that we have people that are taking too many steps forward. If you ask me, it's just my opinion. I'm not on any flat earthers case in this regard, you know, unless they come here and assert it in debate. But yeah, people want that, but it doesn't. It's us being forced into using their tools and tactics with reification models to argue against. They need a comparison with their shape reification of a sphere, and they want to compare it to something, so they give you a flat pizza model of a sphere that's been projected onto a flat pizza. Well, that's their road that they've put you on. And for me, the idea of having a working world map pales in comparison to people actually, on the whole, believing they live on a spinning sphere, flying around in orbits around the light in the sky. Well, that to me, you've got to deal with first before, as mere laymen and flat earthers generally, there's some educated people amongst us, but are we cartographers? Are we going to be able to map the entire surface of the plane? Probably not. Well, why run when we don't need to, if the current people are lying through their back teeth about the nature of the world to the degree that we've got all of these reification maps and models based on spheres? You know, deal with that first, and then in time the more accurate mapping will come, but not while everyone thinks they're on a sphere. No one gives a crap. It's only the flat earthers that are being pushed into caring with these models. They're laid out in all films and subliminally planted. Shout out Flat Earth channel before it disappears. Do you believe in God as in a creator, not a set religion? And do you believe in creator before... Oh, I missed it. I'll have to go and bring it up. I will read your super chat. Let's go and get it. Let's just read that again. Do you believe in God, question mark, as in a creator, not a set religion? And did you believe in creator before finding out it's flat? I've got an on again, off again relationship with the creator. Yes, currently I believe there is a creator. I don't think there's any other opinion you can take. Before Flat Earth, I was pretty much an atheist, although I wouldn't have called myself that. Ex-Christian, maybe. Strayed away from it, and believed in God, then didn't. Then came to Flat Earth and did for a few moments, then didn't. Now I think it's the only way to go. There you go. It's clear as mud. Thanks for the super chat, flatearthchannel.com. Anybody else got an opinion on that? Who else on here? Go ahead.
Yeah, I do. I think you described it well there, because they are trying to X out the creator from everyone's mind. It reminds me of Job chapter 38, where the Lord speaks to Job. If I may, who is this that obscures my plans with words without knowledge? Brace yourself like a man. I will question you, and you shall answer me. So this is the Lord talking to Job. Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Tell me if you understand. Who marked off its dimensions? Surely you know, meaning Job. Who stretched a measuring line across it? On what were its footings set, or who laid its cornerstone, while the morning stars sang together and the angels shouted joy? And on and on. So here's the point that I'm trying to make. Rather than enjoying creation and giving glory and honor to the creator, they want to say we can explain everything, and it's gravity, and it's 4D, and it's this, and it's that, so they can say it's evolution and get the creator out of everybody's mind. And here, so beautifully said, it describes a flat earth foundation, who can mark its dimensions, who can put a measuring line on it, a cornerstone? Who puts a cornerstone on a ball?
Very interesting.
I love it. This is why I love your show. I love your show because you take what's there and you say, I don't know anything past this point. And these guys are trying to tell us past this point is something that can't be verified or, proven.
It's just two people. There's people slide off one side or the other of that knife edge when they find out. It's like despair and appeal to authority and find out who knows what the sky is. Me, I'm like, wow, we don't know. That's cool. World of wonder ahead of us. Ace. That's really cool. I like that bit of it. Why is the sky blue? I don't know. Do you?
I don't know. I don't know either.
Right. Well, that's cool, in my opinion. But for some people, suddenly their world falls to pieces. And it's like not having a map and having a bullshit 1,000 maps that are based on spheres. Is that really a problem? Will your travel change? Well, no, only within potential restrictions that might be in place because of those spherical projections. Well, let's not worry about getting one together that's more accurate when we're, very limited in terms of what we can actually do, given that this is the circumstance we're in. We're lied to about the world we live in. Well, why would you think that it would be made easy to actually map it out? It would have been done already by your average Joe if that was an easy endeavour. Well, it isn't, and the elites who control us and tell us lies about where we live are the ones who've mapped it out, and they've carefully planted little hints here and there and everywhere in films and TV shows and, in the map projection libraries themselves with these quote-unquote flat earth maps, which they're not. Well, why do you think they're in existence in the first place? Why do you think it's on the UN flag? Do you think that's there so that they can suggest to us that it's flat earth just as, a bit of duping delight? Well, I used to think that. Now I don't. They want you to see it. They don't show you things you don't need to see unless you don't, if you don't need to see them. And they want you to see the flat earth reification model. And they want you to adopt it and cuddle it and sleep tight with it and kiss it and tell it you love it. That's what they want.
They want more story time.
Yeah. No arguments about whether or not perspective is being called Earth curve incorrectly and it's been hijacked. Let's argue about whether or not your model works in this circumstance with this set of parameters and when compared to our model when looking at this particular set of circumstances, and which one works best, because the winner is where we live. That's what they want to do. I'm tired of it. It's like, well, I'm not interested. The things I'm interested in are how our reality has been hijacked. This is all in reference to the sphere. How they've actually lied to us. The purpose of being lied to, we can't divine. We may have a bullshit disclosure from liars in the future, should we appeal to them. Me, I've lost all interest. I don't care what they say anymore. I don't care if they can give me another map that's actually accurate. Yeah, right, great, whatever. Who cares? You've lied through your back teeth about where we live. Why? Why have you lied to us? That would be my first question. And I expect every word that came from them thereafter to be lies. So we're left with nothing in that regard. They're just dead end. The people who've lied to us and their maps and models. So chuck them out. Who cares? Don't need them. Shout out to Jimbo Con. No debate. No debate EXP. Any advice for how to get good at explaining and arguing the FE to normies? What's good starting point? Top FE points inside and out. Well, the housekeeping questions, they're being asked for a reason, because they lead your opponent to a logical conclusion. I mean, it's epic when you have someone like Brenda saying, well, the only logical conclusion is that the sky is a container. And I sit here and chuckle. It's like, yes, aren't those questions beautifully phrased? You know, ask somebody, I like that one. I know 10th Man is on mute at the moment, he likes that one as well. But the gas pressure without a container, you know, the way I describe it is, you know, ask that question, how can we have gas pressure without a container? And if they go, what are you talking about? You're like, well, obviously if you've got that propane tank over there, obviously you've got to have the propane tank in order to have the gas pressure inside it. And they go, yeah, I understand that. Yeah, you've got to have a container. Most people will clock the antecedent-consequent relationship when it comes to gas pressure and containers. Hey, Arwin.
Hello.
Hello, good to have you.
Hey.
And then when they say, yeah, you've got to have a container, just nod your head slightly towards the sky and go, you know, they say that's a vacuum. And then just smile at them and laugh, knowing full well that the sky cannot possibly be a vacuum.
So with that whole model thing, it's like, instead of battling that out in 3D, they want us to battle that out in 4D.
Yep.
They want us to delve into their specialty field, the world of presuppositional arguments. And then, yeah, that's where they are building the most of the time. Because that's what it's designed to do, to make you start building your own imagination of reality within the presuppositional realm. That's science fiction. And it's like a sport. But people are made to believe that that is all real. It's taught in school as real. That's the big difference. So people don't realize that's actually just a mind sport. It's a mind game. Now they think it's real, and it's very important.
We've never been into space. You can't go into the vacuum because there is no such thing. I watched the 50th anniversary segments for the Apollo 11 mission this weekend, and it's amazing the footage that you see with the 3 astronauts prior to the press conference where they looked like someone killed their best friend. They were smiling, they're waving, they get rescued from the ocean, they're going into the 30 or whatever day incubation chamber, and you know, pretending that they came from a foreign place and they got to be vetted out to see if they have any diseases, and they're smiling through the window, happy. And then you go to the press conference where the press and the whole world can't wait to hear their stories, and they look like their best friend died.
And with that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on the Nathan Oakley premiering stream, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you're watching live on Nathan Oakley 1980, then this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. I've been Nathan Oakley. Stay tuned if you're watching on the premiering stream, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!